Well, hello everyone and welcome from Sydney, Australia. It's a sunny Tuesday morning and it is so lovely to be here with you all. I'm a bit excited. This is my first ever live webinar, so fingers and toes crossed. It's going to be a smooth experience. It'd be great to hear where in the world you are dialing in from. So shoot that on the chat there. And while we're going through the webinar as well, feel free to pop comments up. It'd be great to hear from you. And there's also a question button down the bottom. You're able to press that and pop questions in and see what questions other people have as well and boost them up. And we'll take a look at those at the end. So a bit of the lay of the land of today. Well, I should introduce myself first. Dr. Nicole Gruhl here, coach to people who have had profound spiritual experiences and are wanting to get on in the world, living their gifts and doing their thing. So I'm suspecting that's you and why you're here today. And our overall topic is 3 common challenges after a profound spiritual experience. What happens, and then what are 3 of the ways that we can overcome that? So we'll dive into a bit of that, and excuse me because I've got some notes on it because there's a lot that I wanted to share with you. So we'll move through that. And I also want to share with you some of a bit about my upcoming mentorship that is happening that relates directly to all of this. I'll do that towards the end. And of course, mention my newest book, The Power of Notes, How Non-Ordinary Transcendent Experiences Transform the Way We Live, Love and Lead. And then, yeah, we'll jump into the Q&A and maybe even be able to invite some people on for a bit of a chat. So we'll see how that goes. So without further ado, let's jump on in. I'm hoping you can see the visual screen as well. 3 common challenges there. Let me just, okay. Goodo. So hopefully now you've got the full screen showing. So 3 common challenges after a spiritual experience and how to overcome those. Well, more and more these days, people around the world are having these experiences. We have more tools to access spiritual awakening than ever before. We have things like the internet to be connected, communities are growing, the technologies are out there, and people are experimenting. Whether it's yoga, meditation, mindfulness, psychedelics, flow states, forest bathing, Burning Man-like festivals, millions of folks are tapping into altered states or expanded states of consciousness, things that are different from the ordinary everyday. And in doing so, people often get a greater sense of self, of meaning in life, what's it all about, and a richer experience in terms of being here and being human and being with one another. There's a New York Times best-selling book that came out recently called Stealing Fire, and they say that $4 trillion is spent every year by people actively seeking altered states. Now, that's a heck of an investment going on there. And also we have better life resuscitating technologies these days. So we have more people also coming back from near-death experiences who have these stories of where they went in between when apparently they might have been clinically dead on the table, and yet they come back with stories of people that they've met or places or realms that they have visited. So some interesting things are going on. And now, with all of this variety out there, it's certainly easy to get lost in this smorgasbord of expansive experiences. But fortunately, there is an umbrella term that's very useful. It's called NOTE, Non-Ordinary Transcendent Experience. And this term was coined by a transpersonal psychologist called William Broad. And he wanted to bring together a few fields of exceptional human experiences, transpersonal psychology, and paranormal studies. They're all talking about similar kinds of things, but he wanted something broader to bring it all in so that we could just have one nice term that we can use to talk about a whole range of experiences. So I find this term useful. I'll be using it for the rest of the webinar. Note. And what it means really is non-ordinary, in that it's just not part of our everyday consensus reality experience. It's transcendent in that it takes us beyond a regular sense of self, or through a sense or an expanded sense of self and others, and an experience. And of course, for many, this can snowball as well. So life might happen around one note, or there could be a snowball effect with many different notes going on. Something I love about the term too is like a musical note. It can kind of highlight poignant times in life. So one of the things about notes is, again, this useful term, there are just so many notes that fit under that. So thus far, there's more than 500 experiences that have been catalogued, and that's a whole heap. So we're talking about things like dreams, big dreams, visions, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, spontaneous healing, mystical experiences, unusual encounters, ESP, and so many more. And, you know, even something like falling in love could be considered a note, in that, you know, when you find that special person and time warps, time can feel a bit different, or it can stand still altogether. And the sense of functioning in the normal everyday is a little different. You know, we might do things or behave in ways that are simply not how we normally are. So you feel different, the world looks different, and this is typically what it can be like for someone who is experiencing or has experienced a note. Now, of course, falling in love is the very beautiful light side of that situation, though, you know, who knows, some infatuations can get a little hectic and crazy. But again, with notes too, you know, there's a whole spectrum of them. It's not necessarily light-filled, love-filled experiences all the time. There's a really broad range where people have sometimes very distressing experiences, very dark experiences also. So when we use the term notes, we are encompassing all of those types of experiences there. There's a really famous example of a note. The astronaut Edgar Mitchell of Apollo 14, he was one of the first people to walk on the moon, and that, of course, is pretty extraordinary in itself. But it was actually when he was coming back from the moon, traveling towards Earth, and he was in this he was in his craft with others, and for 3 days he was looking at the scene that you see here of this beautiful Earth suspended in this black cosmos that just went on and on and on. And for 3 days, he had what he called a mystical, unitive kind of experience, where he was filled with an ecstatic sense of connection. He came to realize that this cosmos that he saw in front of him, and the stars and this ancient wisdom, was exactly the same as every fiber inside his body. So it put him in this really ecstatic state. And when he came back to planet Earth, he actually dedicated the rest of his life to bridging spirit and science. And for those of you that know his story, he founded IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which is still going strong and doing amazing work today. So this is an example of the profound impact a note can have. And then, of course, it's not a happily ever after story. The integration process takes time and is a journey in itself with many layers as people grow. For Edgar Mitchell, it took him the rest of his life. So notes, they can be pleasant, they can be distressing. And sometimes we can seek them. People will go on conscious paths and be seekers of the spiritual world and realms, or want to open up to other things. And for some people, they happen completely by surprise. And it's often for folks where there's not much of a frame of reference, or an unfamiliar frame of reference, and not much experience or seeking beforehand, where that can really shake up someone's life and someone's worldview. So they happen regardless of personality, style, of political leaning. Notes don't discriminate. And my personal belief is that notes are actually a very normal and healthy part of what it is to be human, an extraordinary part of who we are and the abilities that we have. And in fact, ancient civilizations revered these experiences. They would have ritual and ceremony around invoking non-ordinary states of consciousness, because they considered them really important to the fabric of society, to people's health, to the ongoing understanding of who a people are and what they're doing there. We've kind of lost a bit of that in the modern world, but, I'm really hoping that it's going to be coming back and making a revival, and certainly there are many people living in that way right now. And so although notes are actually pretty common, they do happen quite a lot, we just don't talk about them much. And that really has a lot to do with the current paradigm, the current worldview that we're living in. Some statistics say up to 50% of the population will at some point experience a note of some sort. Personally, I think it's a lot more than that when you include other non-ordinary events such as profound dreams, falling in love, these other aspects. When you lose someone, people through grief and loss will often have some kind of a non-ordinary experience around that too. So one of the unfortunate parts of living in a modern society that doesn't recognize these experiences so much is that folks who have them can often be pathologized, thought of it as a bit woo, on the edges, a bit fringe, and even crazy. People who have the experience themselves might question that and say, I wonder, am I mad because I don't see other people around me who are talking about these things, or I haven't heard about these experiences. The other extreme of that, of course, is that these notes can become idolized, and so people can be held on a pedestal, and that can have unhealthy consequences as well. Particularly, as you might know, there are many spiritual leaders recently that where there's been a lot of bad behavior. So they've been able to have great teachings, and yet the human element of them has not honoured and respected the people that follow them that well. And so either side of that can be problematic. So if, for example, today, you started hearing voices, you had a note of some sort, maybe a visionary note, or some, the veils thinned in some way, and you started hearing voices, or you started seeing things that other people don't see, it's very likely that if you went into the regular system, you might be locked into the nut house or medicated, given a diagnosis of some sort, even if you insist that you're not crazy. I've certainly spoken with several people where this has been the case. Or if you gain healing abilities, for example, that the modern world and modern medicine can't explain, you could be considered a danger or a charlatan or a saint. And so people who have that also have to walk that very carefully, walk that path. So, and even again, when people lose a loved one and say maybe there's an apparition, or the loved one comes to them in a dream, or they see things around the house that have moved place and they have a strong sense that that is that person, or an animal comes to them and they really feel like it's that loved person trying to communicate with them, people often don't feel comfortable sharing these experiences with others again, because, it might leave others kind of scratching their head and going, I'm not sure if they're okay. So there's hesitation around them. Now, these experiences, though, we can't deny that they are happening. There are people who continue to come forward sharing extraordinary events, having extraordinary abilities, and sharing that work with the world as well. And it is undeniable also that folks in the world are benefiting from that. So again, it's one of my missions to help normalize these experiences and to to recognize them as a very healthy part of being human. So needless to say, there's a whole heap of challenges that arise for NOTES experiences. It's known in the near-death experience community, for example, that there are higher rates of divorce and ending of relationship than in the regular community. And one of the big reasons around this is it's very hard to articulate and put language around these experiences. And so say one person has an experience and their partner does not, when a profound thing like a near-death experience occurs, often people's values are shifted and a deep sense of self is changed, and they need to change things in the world. And without the ability to communicate that to a partner, it can happen where two people drift like boats in the night. So we don't want that to happen. Obviously, you know, we want to create more language around this. We want to help people be able to share these incredible experiences and process them and grow together through them. So I love this picture when I saw it come out, and I know I certainly relate to it. I wonder if you do too. And so today we're going to focus on these three common challenges. Now, in the journey of integration, there are many different challenges that can come up on the physical level, on the social level, on the emotional level, the psychological level. And of course, there are things that can happen in the short term that one has to address, but also in the long term. But for today, we're going to focus on a simple three, and also three simple techniques and ways, I guess, that these can be overcome. So here we dive in. So the first challenge that is quite common is this sense of, I want to go back. Someone's had an experience. It's been something unlike anything they've ever had before. Perhaps they've gone to a place or had a feeling where it's incredibly peaceful. There's no more pain. It's really beautiful. There might be smells that aren't here on the physical earth. There might be colors that are not here on the everyday realm as well. So these profound, beautiful, often experiences, or really expansive experiences, they don't always have to be beautiful, but amazing and awesome, fully awesome, can leave a person feeling a bit disjointed and jarred after that experience has occurred, and wanting to recapture and touch in on some of that again. Now, understandably, if you've ever had something like this, it's quite natural and normal to want to go back. We are pleasure-seeking creatures after all, and so when there's something exquisite like that, it's part of our natural instinct to want to recapture that. And there's nothing wrong with that at all, given we grow from these experiences, and again, they're natural and normal in who we are. The issue where it can become problematic is if the chasing carries on in such a way where it becomes problematic to the rest of our lives. So that takes precedent over everything else. So for some, we can end up on a merry-go-round type of experience and always wanting that orgasmic high. Joseph Campbell, who gave us that phrase, follow your bliss, came to realize that actually this can become quite lopsided. And he used this term towards the end of his life, saying we should have come to terms with blisters. Sorry, I've just become aware that you're probably not able to see the screen very big. So one moment, let me jump out of that and expand the screen for you. Here's one of the beauties of a live webinar. And you're getting far more of me. And I was hoping you'd get far more of the visual. So there we go again. Now, just get back in. Okay, good. So another part of this ongoing wanting to recreate and chase the events is it can become an addiction for some people as well, wanting to recreate that high constantly. And if you know, we're on this chase to want that spiritual hit constantly, and we kind of neglect the other people in our lives and the things going on in our life, obviously that's not such a healthy approach. And we can either get burnt out ourselves, or we can burn other people in the process. And related to that also is avoiding life on earth. You know, life here is tough. It can be monotonous, boring, dry, and sometimes really ugly. Human behavior can be really challenging and ugly. And for folks who have touched upon something that is just so beautiful and blissful, and some people might call it heavenly, it can be, it's very understandable to want to go back to that place. Now, it doesn't mean a person is suicidal as such. It simply means that, you know, when you look at those two options, there's a desire to want to go back to a different place. So that's the first challenge there. The second one is this sense of no one understands. No one gets me. One of the hardest things about notes is finding the language to describe them. So as we discussed before, they're out of the ordinary bounds of human experience and understanding. So even understanding them for ourselves can be challenging, let alone finding the words to then share with other people. Often these are just so big and enormous, and we don't have the language for the magnitude to capture it. And so, you know, I've even met some people who don't want to share it at all because it's as though putting words to it in some way almost ruins or taints the experience. But the inability to speak about these transformative and profound events can actually sometimes handicap us from moving forward and living completely in our own skin. So if we never tell another person, oh, that's nice. Someone's saying, I like seeing more of you. Thank you very much. I might put it back in a moment. You'll see more of me later on. So where were we? Right. Getting back into our own skin. So it's important in terms of being in integrity with self. If something really profound happens to us, finding some way of embodying that, living that, and doing that in the world is often an important piece of the integration process and moving forward in a holistic way. And so naturally, language coming into that is helpful. So speaking is obviously a part of that, and particularly for those closest to us, even if the outward appearance is still exactly the same, finding those nuances to help people understand the inner journey is going to enrich in relationships and help people walk forward together. And there's also research to show that people who haven't had a note but who hear of those experiences and are around the people who have those experiences can grow just as much as the person that has had the experience themselves. Hence why ancient societies would likely arouse these experiences in collective environments. So for some of us, we'll be very lucky in having a close friend or even a community or some loved ones who we can share with and who understand and can simply be with and listen to and move through that experience together. That's absolutely awesome. But for many people, notes can be isolating, and there can be quite a bit of fear or anxiety around sharing something that is really considered quite out there. You know, what will people think? Will they reject me? And will they think that I'm nuts? And this is especially true for people who've had distressing or dark notes. I've noticed this even in the conversations in the near-death community. Many people talk about these love, light, blissful experiences, and the truth of the matter is that there's a large percentage of people who don't have such experiences, and they can feel even further ostracized when they think, finally, I found a group of people that I can share my experience with, and then they share, and that doesn't seem to fit into the group conversation going on. So again, if this has been you and part of your experience, I'd just really like to honor that we have such a broad range of types of experiences that can happen. And of course, that can feel pretty lonely. So not being understood is an issue there. Problem number 3 is this feeling of I'm living between two worlds. So, for example, when you go traveling to a foreign country and you taste new things and you see new sights and you have all of these new experiences that really bombard your senses and are like, wow, 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 wow. And over time, maybe you're there for a few weeks or so, you eventually learn, how to use the currency and how to have some basic conversation, how to get food, how to get by, and you start to get used to a little bit this new stimulating environment. And then you come back to your home, wherever that might be, and you want to tell people about this experience. And people ask, and they're like, how was your trip? And in the beginning, you might really go into detail about it. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. I did X, Y, Z. And over time, you start to see that look, that comes onto people's faces of, okay, great. I've kind of heard enough about that. And what can tend to happen is over time someone asks, how was your trip? And you just say a few words like, oh, it was really interesting, or it was really great. And so you've had this very rich experience, but it can be hard to bring all of that richness back into the world where everything is still the same. When you go back home, folks are still doing the same things, same conversations, same dramas are taking place. So this can be very similar to the experience for noters who go to that extraordinary place and then now come back and feel like they have to straddle these two worlds. Harry Potter is such a great movie for this. Harry Potter has to deal with the world of muggles that don't understand magic, that don't even know that magic exists, and also be and move through processes in the world of Hogwarts, beyond platform 9 3/4. And so here's a beautiful example of how he can walk in both worlds as a very whole and complete person. Why this can be challenging for folks is some people can walk through their ordinary day-to-day life and really feel like there's this me and there's this me, and it can feel incredibly disjointed. So eventually it's likely that a desire will come about to want to bring these two worlds together seamlessly. So this is called the task of integration. And for many people, this is a lifetime journey. It grows and it deepens as we humans do the same through our life. And as mentioned, there are both short-term and long-term struggles to this. So just like the astronaut that we spoke about before, he had the extraordinary, then came back to Earth, and his journey of integrating those two worlds and making them whole was truly by bringing those together with the science and the spirit. So in the short term, we have to attend to things like body matters, our health, changes to our physical environment, and disruptions to our working life and relationships. Some notes can throw people totally off track and, with the inability to work, to function, to do daily bits and pieces. And hopefully for those folks, there is a safe space to simply be and move through whatever journey it is that they're doing at that time. But the long-term integration is far more subtle, and it's ongoing, and it's often invisible, this kind of work. So this is about being in the world in each unfolding moment. We are evolutionary creatures after all, and so these things can snowball. So let's recap these 3 common challenges faced by nodes experiences. I want to go back, no one understands, and I'm living between two worlds. So how then do we overcome these challenges? Here's 3 solutions. I'm just going to widen the screen again a little bit. There we go. All right. And hello, Canada and Perth. That's awesome. All right. Just getting back to that full screen. Bear with me. Okay, so 3 of the solutions. The first is to live the fruits of your experience in the here and now. So regardless of the type of experience that you've had, there's been some kind of a fruitfulness that's come from that. The goal, the outcome, maybe it's a quality of some sort, like peace or tranquility or love, or wisdom, whatever it is that has emerged for you. So one of the keys there is to live that here and now. So instead of the chasing for it or the wanting to recreate it, to simply capture that as best as possible. It's never going to be exactly the same, obviously, but to capture it as best as possible and to bring it fully into this moment in all that you do. So it's a state that we're creating, really, that allows you to be in resonance with your note and with its wisdom. Abraham Maslow, who is one of the founding fathers of modern psychology and also a notes experiencer. He had a near-death experience and, of course, went into peak states. And he said that, the sacred is really in the ordinary. This is the lesson from all of the great wisdom keepers and spiritual folks, both those who have walked through the experience and those that have come through the academic path, that the sacred is in the ordinary. It's in our day-to-day life, our friends, our neighbors, our family. And similarly, there's a transpersonal psychologist named Jorge, I think maybe, Ferrer, who says that the goal of the spiritual quest is not to have spiritual experiences, but to stabilize spiritual consciousness, to live that life and transform the world accordingly. So really, those fruits, how do we maintain and be in a state of those qualities of our experience and walk the world with that as best as possible in each day, and then live our life from that place? That is the ultimate challenge here. The second solution is to find the right tribe. So not just any tribe, but the right tribe for you in the moment that you are in, one that elevates and expands you as an evolutionary being. So in this journey of finding tribe, and it's very popular, these tribes these days, so it's even more necessary to practice discernment along the pathway. If it doesn't feel right, don't go there, don't do it. If you're in a moment of sharing or the opportunity arises and there's something within you that feels it's not the right time to do that, there's no need to do that whatsoever. If you outgrow a tribe, if you've been with a community that's been absolutely amazing to your growth and health and wholesomeness on your path, but then there comes a point where it's time to walk a bit of a different road, that's perfectly okay too. It's okay to walk away from those spaces, as hard as that might be. And the third then is finding a mentor that really gets it. So, I wish I had a solid mentor through my journey. It's been a good 20 odd years since I had my near-death experience, and I've had so many incredible mentors along the way that, have either walked into my life synchronistically, or I've gone and sought people to help me understand what it was I was going through and what was going on and what are the next steps in my life. But certainly for me, so much of my journey over 20 odd years has been really disjointed. It's been a bit ad hoc here and there. And I see now that if I did have a solid mentor along the way, a lot of that could have been clearer, faster. And so hence this suggestion here of finding a mentor that really gets it, someone that's walked the path before you, that can help make sense of where you're at now, where you might be going, and the most efficient steps from getting from A to B, as well as the potholes that might pop up along the way. Naturally, a mentor can't take the journey for you or do the work for you, but they can cheer you on each step. And if your note has awoken something in you to fulfill with your time on the planet, and you want to get moving with a calling of some sort or be a solution to some kind of a pressing problem that you are acutely aware of and sensitive to, that means that you're ready to step into a leadership role. And perhaps you're already doing that. If so, I applaud you. And as you would know, every great leader always has mentors, people that we can go to and brainstorm with and co-create with and just be with, in who we are in each moment. Now, many notes experiences will pioneer uncharted territory. If that's you, it can be really nice to know that someone's got your back in that journey of the great unknown, that someone understands and that someone can hold that vision for you that you're holding. And that they can, even in the moments where you waver, that vision can, there's a strength that is there for you with someone holding it. Now, many of our most revered artists, musicians, scientists, inventors, and healers had their adventures kicked off by notes. So think Einstein, Martin Luther King, Bob Marley, Steve Jobs. They all had something extraordinary where either a vision came through or a deep sense of connectedness to spirit that helped drove who they are and what they did in the world. And as we all know, we know their names because they made changes. So you're in good company. Again, additionally, a good mentor won't try to convince you about what to think. It's not about what's right or wrong or what ought to be. It's really about exploring what is arising and making good decisions based on that. There is a force of awesomeness that seeks to come through each of us. This is my understanding. And in my view, what a good mentor does is help bring that through, hold the space so that you, the container, can do that your way on planet Earth. So those three solutions again are to live the fruits of your experiences in the here and now, to find the right tribe that elevates and expands, and to find a mentor that really gets it. So being a notes experiencer myself, like I said, I get it. And I would have really loved these elements put together in a coherent and consistent manner on my own journey. So that's exactly why I put together the Notes Mentorship, which, if it's okay with you, I'd like to share a bit about. So starting at the end of this month in January, this new offering, the Notes Mentorship, is available to a small group of people. I'm really excited about this because at the end of the day, it's a privilege to walk the path with people who are opening to their full being and wanting to get on with their best calling on the planet. To witness that and support that and cheerlead that and celebrate the successes as that person goes along is the biggest privilege and just so wonderful. So the mentorship is for folks who have had something extraordinary that is awoken within and want the guidance and support for what comes next. So perhaps that's you, perhaps that's someone you know, perhaps you're doing this already for other people. So for those who want that guidance and support of what's going to come next, I suspect you'll love this mentorship. I hope so. So here you'll see what you get out of the experience. It's again strengthening who you are naturally. We go into things about your personality strength. Now, there's a lot out there. There's many people out there that poo-poo the ego or the personal. My personal stance on that is that the personal really matters. We are given certain patterning in our mind, certain gifts in who we are in our being, and our energy moves through us naturally, whether it's in more introverted ways or extroverted ways. And I see that as a really important piece of the puzzle in figuring out who we are and what we're here to do. So by understanding that more deeply, I think it's an added strength to the journey. So that's part of the work that we do together. As a mentorship, this is a group coaching experience. So obviously there's connecting in with a whole group of people, which is really awesome too. So my job is to help you harness your awesomeness that is coming through. Every 2 weeks, we have live coaching, and we'll be using my book, The Power of Notes, this one right here, as a general guide. Now, you can get this online right now. It's available through Amazon. You can get it hard copy through my website, and I will be more than happy to sign it for you and write a love note in there. And we actually have an online book launch coming up in a few days. I think it's less than a week away. And that'd be great if you're interested. We're going to walk through the book. We'll kind of do a tour through it and be able to have more of a conversation about experiences then as well. So we use the book as a guide also on our notes journey together. And there's a 4-step system too of sharpen, sage up, shine, and soar. So this will be a bit of the skeleton form through our time together. Sharpen is about getting crystal clear. What is your life vision? What is that diamond on the map that you're going to expand and step into and bring in and enhance that state of more and more in each day? We're going to sage up. We're going to tap into the wisdom of your notes, understand what happened, what were your experiences, what were the beautiful pieces that came through that. What are those notes saying in terms of guidance for you and others here on the planet? And then making that concrete in your actions. Shine is leveraging your natural gifts. So here we're going into personality. We're understanding not just the very human components of you, but then how did those notes open up and even turn up the volume on some of those qualities so that you may have these supernatural abilities. What are they? Many of the clair abilities come through. So clairsentience, clairaudience, clairvision, for example. People might have healing abilities. So, or vision states, able to see things again that others can't. So really understanding the uniqueness of you and how how your experiences are affecting you as a human, and how to walk forward on the human path with those non-ordinary features, I guess you could say. And then soar. This is about giving your vision roots and wings. So this is really coaching savvy stuff. It's about looking at the big life zones, what is most important to you, taking concrete steps and actioning. This is a very active experience. It's not a sit back and relax kind of thing. You're the ones doing the work. So action. I want you to be successful. So there's also some really cool bonuses in addition to the coaching. So of course there's every 2 weeks a live coaching session together. You get copies of the books, and there's an optional Facebook. I call it a mastermind because really it's tapping in on the wisdom of the collective. So that's there if you want it. You get the recordings of all of the sessions. And for those who want to sign up within the next 2 days, there are 2 extra bonuses here. So one is an additional Gifts Compass report. The Gifts Compass is that online assessment that goes into personality and being. So you will get to do that with a loved one and bring that loved one in, and we'll do that session together online. And then the other part is you get even more bonus copies of the book that you get to give to people and share widely. So the investment there is $3,997. There's a monthly payment plan if that is more suited to you. If so, you can just hit me up an email and we'll figure that out for you. So we're going to move into the Q&A part. Thank you for bearing with all of this talk up until now. I'd love to hear more from you. Okay, let me exit this screen. There we go. So there's a feature down the bottom there, which is the ask a question. Go right ahead, and if there's things in there that you wanted to post, you can. If you wanted to have a bit of a live chat and you're ready to have your video come on up, I can certainly invite you in and we can have a live time talk. So until I see something else popping up there, what else can I tell you? I can tell you a bit more about the book if you'd like. So there's a bit of neuroscience in here. It goes into a bit of an understanding of, you know, what are some of the thoughts, what is the research saying on what is happening with the human brain as we go through these non-ordinary states of consciousness. So it certainly doesn't tell you what the right answer is, but it shares some of the research that is out there. It covers much about those experiences as well. So the short-term after effects, the long-term after effects. And of course, the key to the book is how it transforms the way that we live and we love and we lead. And so it shares a little bit from 20 experiencers who I had the privilege of getting to know through my research, and shares small bits about their stories as well. Yeah. So I'm not seeing any questions pop up. And if that's going to be a wrap, we can leave it as a wrap. I'd love to hear, even if you want to type something in the chat as well, it'd be great to hear from you. Yeah, spot on with the challenges. I hear you, Linda. It can be a rocky road, definitely. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, if that's a wrap, we might leave it there for today. Oh, Rick and Jeannie. Hi, fabulous to see you too. Yeah, wonderful. I miss you guys. Katrina, great to see you. I suspect you're coming in from New York. That's awesome. Thank you. So there is the live book launch coming up for The Power of Notes in a few days. It's again through Crowdcast. It'll be a format like this. You can, I think if you go to my page on Crowdcast, you'll see the link to that. You can register again. I'd love to see you there. Yeah, I'd love to hear about your experiences too. There'll be chances there to jump on in if you want to. Again, the window's still open now if anyone's feeling brave enough to jump on in and share something of their own experiences if you want. The recording is going to be available for folks too. So if you want to share this content with anyone, you can simply give them the link, the same link that you registered on. And the Notes mentorship, if this is of interest to you, then jump on my website. You'll see the links there for the Notes mentorship. Enrollments are now open. We start at the end of January. If this is appealing to someone who you know, then great. Let them know about it. That would be marvelous. It truly is my privilege to work with folks like this, and I just want people to do their thing in the world and support them doing that. So hopefully there's been some takeaways for you from this. All right, I guess we'll leave it at that. It's a wrap. I hope it's been a pleasant enough experience on this first ever live webinar. Woohoo! Made it through. And stay tuned. There's going to be a whole heap more of them. So yay! Okay, folks, have a beautiful day, a beautiful evening wherever you are in the world. Thank you for tuning in. Shine on. Make life beautiful. Bye.